Hi, this is Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we have been providing in-home supportive care services for our older adult population right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Since 2014, we've been bringing you a show on Money Radio called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. In case you miss our show that airs every Friday at noon, you can catch it right here on our podcast called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. So when you get a chance, listen in and enjoy the show.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and indeed it is. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. We're also coming at you via podcast, so you can find us on any of the podcast channels that are out there. All we ask you to do is like us, give us a review, and certainly recommend us to others. We've been on the air now for 11 years and been podcasting for well into 6 months now. And what makes this show great is I bring in these extraordinary guests. And what we do is we talk about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And every single one of the guests that have donned my studios, whether they've been here physically or today, like my guest today is coming in through technology, they have all been contributors to this space and really making a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. So without further ado, I've got coming via the telephone, but I actually can see her via the Google Meet application. I have got Emily Isbell. She is the CEO and founder of L & Company. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. It's really good to see you again. I saw you, I think it was last October. It's been a while. And you are a home care veteran. And I would love for you to take our listeners. And typically I go into the second segment and talk about maybe their background. But I think it's really vitally important for our listeners here today to know a little bit about you and where you are at in this continuum of serving one of the most vulnerable populations out there.
Absolutely. So I have such a long story. It's 14 years in the home care industry before now what I'm doing today. So I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible.
Please do. But, we only have 4 segments, and each one's about 10 minutes long. So if you went through all 14 years, we might make it to the 4th segment. So thank you. But 14 years is certainly an accomplishment.
Yes. I'm very proud of that. It actually started in 2007 when I was in college. I learned about home instead and became a caregiver. And so I was a college student. It was a part-time role. It really actually became a full-time role, and it helped me get through college, paying my rent. And the story goes is that as soon as I became a caregiver, within the first week, really the first shift, I was amazed that you could make a living doing something so impactful for someone else's senior journey. And immediately reached out to the owner of the company and asked to meet with him. And when I sat down, and he was kind enough to do so, and when I sat down with him, I asked him, how can I be you one day? And from that meeting, he helped me. I actually changed my college degree. I was going to do psychology, planning to be a clinical therapist one day. I changed my degree to healthcare administration, so a business administration degree with a healthcare focus. all thanks to that meeting. And it's kind of funny. I don't talk about this very often, but I talked with a school counselor when I was doing it. And when I spoke with her, she said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Because I was a junior in college. This meant adding another, I don't even want to talk about that. So much more time to my college journey.
Well,
She said, "Are you sure?"
let's face it. I mean, adding more college time, I mean, how bad could that really be, Emily? I mean, seriously, right?
Oh, well, don't forget the debt. Don't forget the debt.
So
The
true.
loans,
So
the college
true.
loans.
So
And
true.
so, yeah, she said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes." And she wasn't very enthusiastic about it. And she just said, I think you're in a honeymoon phase, and I'm wanting to caution you." And I said, "I'm still sure." So I, sure enough, was not a honeymoon phase 14 years later.
Wow.
So I changed my degree, and fast forward over time, once I graduated, it was always understood. And I guess I should back up a little bit. I was promoted into the organization a year and a half after being a caregiver. I served nearly 2,500 hours as a caregiver during that time.
Wow.
And I was promoted into the office. And roughly 4 years later, it's a rough estimate, I ended up taking over a location in Franklin, Tennessee, where the owner purchased it, and I was the I guess you would say sweat equity. And he did not have a face in the company. They knew me as the leader there. It was a small organization serving about $39,000, big difference, $39,000 a month in revenue, and we grew it to $220,000 in a month in revenue in 4 years.
And by the way, for our listeners, Franklin, Tennessee is just on the suburbs of Nashville, so it's a big market.
Yeah,
big market. I
definitely.
want our listeners to know, because they may not know where Franklin is.
Good point. And it's a unique market because it has both rural and metro. Very unique. So fast forward to keep this as from taking all 4 segments, we ended up expanding, taking on a second office in 2016, where I was the face of that company, and that was the Nashville location. So just 30 minutes north. And then fast forward to by 2020, we had 7 locations.
Wow.
Across 3 different states. And we were serving 1 million hours of care a year out of those 7 locations.
How impressive. And were you responsible for all 7 at the end?
So we trialed and errored different things.
Right.
And we got to the point where we had executive directors and regional leaders. And so I credit myself to the framework we built to get to that. But it was a dividing, a supportive staff
and
to
so,
help make that happen.
So for our listeners, so they understand, in the home care business, the framework that she's really talking about is the standard operating procedures, the processes, right? That's what you've really incorporated. And really understanding franchises and home care agencies, you wanted to replicate that in each one of those markets. So they all rolled up to one, so the owner or whoever, the accountant, financial manager, can see the consolidated data, and it can be consistent across all different locations. Do I have that right?
Exactly. And we kind of figured that out and was able to, it snowballed towards the end. I mean, we had 2 for about 4 years, and then 3 for the next year. And then suddenly it was 4, 5, 6, 7 very quickly. And it was possible because of those frameworks you're hitting on.
Right. So, all right, we're going to wind down the first segment here. So real quickly, you got out, why and when, and quickly maybe tease the second segment. Tell us what you're doing, or maybe what leads up to that.
Sure. So everybody's heard about, I think at this point, the great resignation that happened with COVID.
Yes.
I was a part of that time frame, but it's not for what you think. So actually, I'm going to leave it as a teaser and just keep it short to say, once COVID happened, it kind of opened my eyes on next steps for me in my life.
Wow. Well, and we have just about another minute here. COVID, and really talking about it. That was a monumental time for home care. And just so listeners understand, I mean, we call ourselves non-medical. And Emily, you may have heard me say this. I always try to refer to us as in-home supportive care services, because that really is more descriptive of what we do. But, we didn't know how to don a mask or, any of the PPE equipment that we needed. And it was really learning by trial and error and really going out and trying to figure out where we can get that stuff. So it was
all that
and more. And really, it's hard to believe it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, this state was still shut down. We were one of the first states that opened up in early May. Well, you're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I got Emily Isbell here in the studio, coming to me virtually and through technology. She's the CEO and founder of L & Company. She left us a little tease, so we're going to learn a little bit why she departed home care, and COVID may have had something to do with it.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you are just tuning in, I've got Emily Isbell here in the studio with me. She's the CEO and founder, and I need to be corrected. It's EI and Company, and EI is for Emily Isbell. So my apologies for saying EL, but EI and Company. And if you missed the first segment, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below it. You'll find radio show. You'll catch this one and many, many more. So Emily, you teed up this second segment really by talking about how COVID impacted you, and you stepped away, and that was in October of 2020. And would love to learn a little bit more how that impacted you and where that took you in your journey.
Absolutely. So what I didn't tell you about the story when I met with the owner in 2007 was that I added, at least it may not have been that exact meeting, but in due time, I was quick to say, after agreeing to kind of be the face of his companies and let him invest and me to lead, he always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So he understood that, and so I actually gave him my notice back then. The difference is I told him it would be when I was 45. I am not 45 yet. So I did it early. And the reason why is because even though I was so thankful, I mean, yes, all that you talked about before the break was hard. But what I was so thankful for and what inspired me the most is thank goodness we were seen as essential. I mean, that was so scary there for a while. So I was so thankful, and I was looking at friends who were losing jobs. I was looking at everybody else scared, and I'm thinking, everybody's pointing to home care. Yay. Like, we are in the right spot.
We matter.
So even though, go ahead.
I said we matter. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And finally, people are paying attention to it, because that was the issue in the home care industry before, is we're constantly educating home care and versus home health medical services and just the benefits that they bring. And so I was grateful, but holding that in one hand, and on the other hand, I was thinking, at the same time, my dermatologist was just hospitalized for weeks due to a blood clot, and he was a triathlete. We may not make it to tomorrow, even at my age, and no pre-existing conditions, because we have to think back to that time and how vulnerable we all were as a population. And so in that moment, I'm like, I may not make it to 45. So while I'm thankful for this home care and the fact that we're essential, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I always knew that. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do it. And that's really key, because I didn't go to give my notice and develop a succession plan with knowledge of my next plan. I had no clue. I just knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was so dedicated and loyal to making sure my teams were doing right by the seniors in need during that time, and the caregivers receiving the treatment from our team, that the clients were receiving the proper treatment from our caregivers, that I had no idea what I was going to do. And so I gave my notice, which was a 6+ month notice with a plan to how to replace me. We worked to promoting and moving positions around for 3 different people to make that possible. And then I took a sabbatical to try to figure out what I wanted to do, but also I I made the rule to myself, my plan is to not have a plan, which after 14 years of home care, very different.
Oh, yeah.
Different plan, and it was difficult.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the suspense is killing me. I mean, so you gave 6 months. Was it October you left, or did you leave in early 21?
So I gave 6 months. We made the succession plan, and were able to meet it before my notice was up. And so we knew that I wanted to take part. And so in October, I originally planned to stick around to the end of the year, but then it just made sense with annual planning for me to leave it before they started that. So October 2020 was the last full month of service that was underneath my leadership.
Wow. And I'm wondering, and certainly want to know, that little sabbatical you took, how long was that, and how long did it take before EI and Company was created?
So it was scheduled to be 6 months, and I don't think I made it past 3. I did do my part, though, and it's funny how much of a plan I had not having a plan, which would, how much I became organized about just going for a hike or having lunch with a friend. It's like I had to make a business of not having a job. So in that 3 months, though, I had enough people reaching out that used to work alongside me, colleagues, people in the industry, past team members, everybody just kind of seeking out advice and ways to operate their business. And so they were hinting at it. And I'll tell you, after 14 years in home care, and I think listeners can relate, that's a long time. That's a long time of 24/7 responsibilities. And I wasn't sure I'd ever want to go back in home care. And during that sabbatical, I really didn't plan to. But they were hinting and nudging me that way. And I started to share this with you before, so I'm going to share it now. I came across, I don't know why, but I came across your website. Once somebody was like, Emily, you know it inside and out. That's what you need to do. You know it inside and out. And people want to hear from you on how you built those businesses. And so I'm like, I'll at least research some home care businesses that are out there that aren't home instead, just what's going on out there. Came across yours, came across a video of one of your sweet clients just being so thankful for the services you all and her caregiver provide. And that for the first time in a long time, I just swelled up with love and like just chills came over me for that senior and just how much of a difference we made. And when you're in the business of building businesses, you can lose sight a little bit. Even if you know surface level you're making a difference, it's hard to sometimes get in touch with that emotion after so many years of doing it. And so honestly, your website was the straw on the camel's back that led to me to starting my business.
I got to tell you, I'm moved, and I really appreciate you sharing that story. And, we documented so many of these testimonials from the family members that were receiving care or actually care recipients. And, I must tell you, and I'm glad you found home care to be your next stop and stay in this business, because it's incredibly rewarding. I mean, people don't really realize that, we get to be part of these families' lives. We get to help write that last chapter. It's not an easy one, that's for sure. And sometimes we're with them all the way to the time they discharge to heaven. Sometimes we're with them long enough before they go into maybe a group home or assisted living or skilled nursing facility. But to give them that dignity, that independence, and really to help them understand that their life matters is really important. And look, there's a great data point that we came, when I say we, HCOA, the Home Care Association of America, came out when they did an industry report back in 2017, 2018, and basically said the average distance for an adult child from their parents is 280 miles, and in some cases it's further. And we know 1/3 of our population, 65 and older, lives home alone. So caregiving is so important and so vital, and the work we do, as well as anyone out there, any one of the 54 million family caregivers that are out there making a difference in someone's life, is incredibly fulfilling and rewarding. So, Emily, I'm glad you're still in the biz. And, I want to tee up this third segment because we're coming up on almost halftime. So I want you to tee up in the best way you can, talking about how you reimagined Emily Isbell in the home care vertical in your next chapter of life. So please do tee this one up for us.
Absolutely. So when I first started, I didn't know what it would look like in terms of providing consulting to home care businesses, but I knew that I was passionate about the relationship between a franchisee and a franchisor because I had experienced it. And in our acquisition of homesteads during that time of building businesses, some of those were from owners that didn't succeed, and some of it was because of their stubbornness. I hate to say, on not wanting to follow the advice of their franchisor. And so I love being a middle seat of that and helping bridge that gap for franchisees and franchisors. At the same time, I focus in on profit for those home care owners. So I also work with independent home care as well. In short, though, we've fast forwarded to I have a team of 8 today, and I can't believe that. And
are they W-2'd or 1099?
It's a mix. It is a mix.
You know, just being in home care, we know how important it is if you're caregiving to have a W-2. That's why I asked.
Sure. Yeah, it is a mix. I do have 2 former Homestead corporate employees that were my advisors. So,
wow,
that's an interesting, place to be, and it's so exciting. It's so exciting. I'm so thankful they're just good people too, and I just love being with people that want to make you a better person every day, and that's what I've surrounded myself with. So, very exciting.
And I think that's important. And I mean, without any names, I would love to hear, and maybe we cover it in this next segment. We got about a minute here. Some of the expertise that your 8 team members have, because look, we as entrepreneurs and business people, we know what our limitations are, and we know that we want to surround ourselves with people that are maybe a little bit smarter than us. So if you could real quickly profile some of the backgrounds on some of these folks.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you said that, because that's what I speak to, and sometimes when I say it, I'm like, does it make me look not good enough?
Exactly.
We're all worried if we're good enough. But I'm so proud of it. I'll speak to two people I call my numbers nerds, and that's Matt and Erica. Erica's a bookkeeping guru and has a lot of experience in the home care industry with bookkeeping. I won't go too deep into that, but man, she takes care of my clients when it comes to that stuff, and I'll tell you, my eyes go crossed when it comes to anything QuickBooks or any other version of accounts. I can run with it, but I struggle.
You hear the music. So we only took care of Erica, right? But, yeah. And you know what? Having someone that really understands the finances of any business, whether home care or others, is so vitally important. Well, we're at halftime here at Health Futures. I got Emily Isbell here with me at Health Futures. She is the CEO and founder of EI & Company. I hope you're enjoying the show. This is your host, Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. If you have any questions about the topics that are discussed during the show, visit us online at cypresshomecare.com or give us a call at 602-264-8009. We are entering now the second half of our show, so stay tuned for more helpful information to assist you with your aging loved ones.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And if you are just tuning in, we're in our second half here. I've got Emily Isbell here. She's coming to our studio through technology, through Google Meet, as well as through the telephone lines, because the voice is much crisper through the telephone lines. And she has this great company called EI & Company, and she is the founder of it. She's an entrepreneur, and she was teeing up our second half at the end of the second segment, talking a little bit about her journey into the home care space, but more importantly, when she left home care and how she found this consulting business. And we learned about one person in terms of the 8 that she has on her team. And I don't need you to go through each of the names, but the first person you mentioned, you can share their name. What was their name again?
That was Erica.
Erica. And just so our listeners know, whether you are a home care company or you're selling widgets or services, a CFO, a controller, a financial person is vital to your business. And it is so important to have that. And especially in home care. I mean, Emily, you and I both know there are a lot of people that are in this space because they're caring spirits. They may have been a CNA or a caregiver or even a nurse, or maybe they cared for a loved one and they wanted to get into this business. And, they don't know the first thing about a cash flow statement or a P&L or balance sheet. And, that is vital. So I'm so glad that you have that as part of your arsenal.
Yes, exactly. And then I have, just to name one more, Matt, that I also call part of my number nerds. And it has similar strengths and also data. He can take what I want to know and create data around it so that I can improve it. And that's what he did for me when I was at Home Instead building those businesses. Is he helped me create formulas to where I could track the operational changes I was making to make sure they were actually working. We were a very data-focused business, I will say.
Well, and that's so important. And it's important to have that data. Just out of curiosity, I mean, we're not plugging enterprise software solutions, but were you just using one across all locations?
We were.
And which one were you using?
WellSky.
Okay. I mean, look, a lot of people were using WellSky, and that was formerly known as ClearCare. They were bought by WellSky a few years back. Well, Emily, we now want to talk about you, and I know you might be a little embarrassed to talk about yourself, but this is a great platform to do this, and you provide a vital service for home care agencies because there are approximately about 30,000 across the country, and approximately there are about 6,000 of them that are franchised. So we have about another 24,000 that are independents, mom and pops, and it's a very fragmented business, and it's a business that needs mentors and coaches and consultants like you. So I'd love for you to take us through in this third segment. Tell us a little bit about your consulting practice, and I got it on your email chain about 6 months ago, and I get these Tuesday takeaways, and I love the play on words. I want you to talk about that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So I first want to start by saying we focus on operations, and sometimes to our detriment, I think from a market perspective, it is easy for a home care owner to just think that their problem is sales and getting enough clients or getting the right clients. And so I think it's easy from a marketing perspective to want to focus on marketing only because that's just the popular thing. We focus on operations because we believe marketing is 1/5 of the equation, that you need the other 4/5 to also be in line to really make it work. So as much as you might bring in new business, you got to be able to take care of them. And one of the motivations for me, that list is long on starting this business. Your website was what finally got me there, but the list of reasons to continue to do it was one of them being that I wanted to raise the bar. That we weren't perfect. Those businesses weren't perfect, but we were able to grow in size and serve that number of hours because we had a white glove approach to care, and so we had expectations of our caregivers and to make sure that they took care of our clients well. And so you only can do that if you have operational framework in place to hold people accountable to a higher level and a higher standard. And so I want to point that out really quickly and say we do focus on marketing, but it's 1/5 of everything else. Financials, we've got focus on client retention, client acquisition is the marketing, caregiver retention and caregiver acquisition. Those are the 5 things. And then you button that all up with quality leadership. So also being a strong leader and making sure that you look in the mirror because that's a key part of being able to improve every day. So to talk about the Tuesday takeaways that you mentioned, we send out every Tuesday 2 takeaways. So it's spelled TWOSDAY for Tuesday takeaways.
I love it.
But it's because we send only 2. We do not bombard emails. I've got plenty of those coming my way that I don't want to do that to anybody else. And as someone who works in the business of 24/7 care, you already have enough clutter coming your way with call outs and everything else.
And it's
So-
easy to read for our listeners to know. It's like one page and like 2 paragraphs under each of the tips, the Tuesday takeaways.
And they're designed to improve operations and revenues, and we don't want to overpromise, but if you make these tweaks and you consistently follow through on these tweaks, we do believe strongly in that. And some things won't land. Some things don't matter to your business at that particular moment. But either way, I get wonderful feedback. We have an incredible open rate. Most of, I think it's around 60%. So some people just never get them. But I'm pretty proud of that. I don't think that's always the case.
No,
so that's our Tuesday takeaway.
That's really big.
Good. Glad to hear that. That's not my strength either. That's my team member Amanda's strength in terms of digital marketing. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is what we start every client with, and that's a cumulus strategy session. So you'll notice in my logo, I like clouds. There's a caregiving story related to that. Mm-hmm. And it's when I was with my client that was 96 years old when I started with her, and we went to the park, and she was taking her time, and I had a short shift. It was a 3-hour shift at the time, and I wanted to get back to her apartment to end my shift and be good on time. And she wasn't going as fast as I wanted. I was being human and being impatient. And she stopped, looked up at the sky, and just said, "Oh my goodness, how beautiful are those clouds?" And I loved clouds before that. And so then for her to do that and just ground me in that moment, I just was like, you know what? Nothing else matters. You get to enjoy this beauty right now. And so that's part of the inspiration of the logo. But I try to, in branding world, I have fun with that. And so it's a cumulus strategy session because it's an accumulation of how your business operates. We turn over every stone. It's multiple sessions with you where it will take as long as it needs before we uncover everything we need before we give you advice on what to do. And so it ends with an action plan, multiple pages, but in order of what you should do next. Very careful not to just bombard you with a lot of to-dos. And so that's our cumulus strategy session. That's where everybody starts. And then from there, people can choose to follow, to sign up for more services in the sense of what our next one is accountability in action, which is all virtual, where we follow you through that action plan and implementation. That way we can be there as you implement and find some challenges in that process possibly. And then our premier service is our co-leadership service, and that's where we only take on a handful at a time because we want to make sure we can be at, I like to say, their beck and call. And so even in this call we've had today, I have a text from one of my co-leadership clients just updating me on an excitement that she had in her business today. So that's the premier service where we're available pretty much anytime.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. And you covered the blocking and tackling, and that's what I like to refer to it as for a home care agency, because you really need to have those fundamentals down. It's, it kind of reminds me of the FedEx commercial where the guy would answer the phone and say, yeah, I got it. And then how am I going to do it? You can go out and market, but you don't get a second chance for a first impression. And you got to be able to deliver. And that's the hardest thing is if you don't have the internal processes down. And that's something you and I were talking about earlier, having those standard operating procedures that can cross 7 different franchises, and each one of them runs the same one, so they can roll up to one, so that your financial gurus can take a look at that and be able to discern changes and certainly positive and as well as negative.
Yes.
So you hear the music, and it goes really fast here, and I just want to make it really clear is that we talked a little bit about your business, and I want to talk more about that in the 4th segment. But you wrote a book, and it's not out quite yet, but I want you to talk about the book, and it's called The 24/7 Solution: Proven Strategies for Home Care Leaders and How to Receive This Low Price Book Through Kindle or one day Amazon. We're down 3. We got 1 more to go. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602 264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, we're in our fourth segment here, and I've got Emily Isbell here with me in the studio. She's coming to us via telephone as well as Google Meet, and she is in Tennessee and doing some phenomenal things as an entrepreneur, running this incredible consulting firm. She's got 8 people that are working for her, specializing in home care operations for home care business leaders. And she's also working with independent home care owners too. And the name of her company is called EI and Company. And Emily, if you wouldn't mind, this is a great opportunity to give a plug. How do people learn more about you and get a hold of you?
Sure. So I think the best way is really through my website, which is www.eiandcompany.com. And they can inquire or fill out an application if they already know what kind of service they would want from their time there.
Perfect. And, if you want to also, find out about her too or connect with her, if you're a home care operator, she's on LinkedIn. Easy to find. Emily Isbell. You'll find her, and you should link into her because she's doing some fabulous stuff. So now, we talked about your consulting business, and you're a book writer too. And, I really like the title. And the reason why I like the title, because you talked about in the first segment, 14 years, you slept with one eye open. And you had to because, home care is not a 8 to 5 job. It's a 24/7 job. And it requires, you to be very responsive because we're in the human business. And you know what? Humans' conditions change on a dime. And when they change, it calls for different solutions or different measures, and you've got to be responsive to that. So I want you to talk a little bit about the book. How did it originate? I can't thank you enough for serving up that manuscript to me last fall or last winter, and I'm happy to give you a review for that. But tell me about the book.
Sure. So something to mention about the services from last segment is that I didn't mention the growth that comes from clients that work with us. And, just found out today, one of our clients that's been with us 2 months in 2 months has grown by 34%. And that's honestly what we tend to see. Yeah, exactly. It's you didn't see Bob, but he was raising his hands in the air. He was lifting the roof.
Lifting the roof, baby. Way to go. 30 some odd % just in a couple months. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And a lot of it, I imagine, is the operations. You're smoothing that out.
Absolutely. Gosh, yes. Smoothing it out. That's so true. I mean, it's not that they don't have some frameworks. It's really smoothing out those frameworks into their level and can meet the pressure of growth, because that's key. And I won't act or pretend like this particular owner is not feeling that pressure, but she feels so much more excited about it than she would have been if that had come in before she had made a lot of the foundational changes she had, both in her team operations and her expectations of her team, her caregiver expectations, so many things. So to go back, I say that because those stories with my clients is what inspired me to want to try to reach the masses, because there's no way that everybody that's in home care, you just named it, roughly 30,000 people, could get our one-on-one services. There's just not enough of us to go around. And so it's my way to try to go back to what I had said. I wanted to elevate the standards in home care that I saw were lacking. And I saw that when I was a provider, and we would get clients that used to use a different provider in our area, and just some of the, I hate to say it, but some of the horror stories that existed from people providing care. And then I saw it with standards of people that said they worked somewhere else and some of their background checks were questionable and we couldn't hire them because of them, and yet they had worked at other home care. So there's standards like that I'm not going to go too far in the weeds. But all that to say, I had experience there, and then when I got out and saw why it was, that's why I wanted to write this book, because I'm working with owners who want to do right. They don't want to have horror stories told about them, and they just don't know where to start. And so this book was my journey to try to reach the masses and selfishly give me some sort of book to start with all my clients with, to help me guide them beyond their action plan into next steps. And so it's a mixture of both. self-serving and also to meet a mission of elevating care across the nation. There's also a story there about my grandma, but I want to be mindful of time. So you tell me, should I share it?
Yeah, please do. I mean, it really speaks to, you and why you're in this business. So please share.
All right. So personal story of mine, my grandmother had care, and before she had care, I reached out to a homestead owner about setting that care up. She had a long-term care insurance policy. We knew what we were doing because of me to a degree. And so I set it up for him to know that was coming, and he was ready to help. Long story short, when we called to set up the consultation, that owner said to my mom, could we schedule this 2 weeks from now? Because the person who's supposed to provide the consultation, do consultations, is on vacation, and it's a 2-hour drive for me to do it. And my mom, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Yes, wow, right?
And that was a homestead too, right?
It was a homestead, and I'm not trying to pick on homestead, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Well, and it's operations. It's please.
It is. He didn't have a plan. He didn't mean bad. He just didn't have a good plan, and or the filter to understand that. And so then fast forward, I told my mom not to go with him, because if that was the experience then, it's going to be the experience when something else happens. So let's not do that. And went with an independent home care agency who did do better. However, they also had a long history of no-call, no-shows, to the point where my mom, when she had to have surgery, she said, please make sure there's a substitute. Like, can we make sure that there's no problem that day? Called multiple times in advance to make sure. They said it was handled. But sure enough, surgery happens. My caregiver, the grandmother's caregiver, didn't show. My dad has to drive back and forth from the hospital to take care of my grandmother and my mom and make sure things are taken care of. So that journey, seeing it both in independent home cares and the franchise world and just everywhere, I just knew that it's systems. It's a lack of systems. I might butcher this quote, but James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits, and one of my favorite quotes is that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. I might have butchered it, but the point's still there.
No,
people just don't have the system.
Point is definitely there, no doubt. One of the metaphors you use in your book, and I definitely would love for you to talk a little bit about it, and then we're going to wrap things up here. And that is, you talked about, you used the metaphor of a thermostat. And, can you share with us that metaphor and how you use that to, improve maybe as an operator?
Well, I would say it kept me in check. Whether it improved, maybe, but it kept me in check as a leader. Our jobs as leaders in home care operations, we know that there's constantly possibility of a no-call, no-show or a client being upset. And so there's so many challenges in home care, and it's our job to be the thermostat, to be the one that sets the temperature of the office for our office staff, so that they then set the temperature for our caregivers, versus be a thermometer that reads the temperature and responds to it. We need to be setting that stage. And so that kept me in check to make sure I'm here to model that for my team, so they model it for our caregivers and take care of our clients well.
I love that. All right, so we got about a minute. Is there a question I haven't asked, or is there a lasting thought you would love to leave our listeners? And Emily Isbell, I am so glad to spend some time here with you. And I do want to talk to you when we come off the air, too. We'll have to set up a time, tell you about some of the things that we're doing. But real quick, is there any parting messages you would like to leave?
Well, you mentioned it slightly. I just want to mention that the launch day has not been decided yet. But as soon as we decide it, if you want to know the date that it's coming out, so you can get the Kindle version for approximately $1.99, it comes with 30 tools that beyond just the book that you read. And if you want that, be sure to subscribe to the Tuesday Takeaways, and that'll be the one time, to point out what I said, we don't bombard you. That'll be the one time we send something that's not a Tuesday Takeaway if you're on that email list. And
you can get that at eiandcompany.com. Emily Isbell, awesome to have you on the show. Awesome to get to know you better. Make it a great day. We'll be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, Call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3.